With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
Banana, nana, fovamber. Wait, hang on. How do you?
What? Banana, nana.
Amber, fovamber. Banana, nana, fov.
You realize that we're on the air, right?
Yeah, I also realize I'm the editor. So.
What's happening over here? Are you having a stroke?
It's the name song, and
Okay.
there's supposed to be a joke about now. Let's do Chuck.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Chuck, Bobug, banana, nana,
Beep.
Bobug, fee, fi, fo.
Beep.
That's always been the joke.
Alrighty, ladies
Wow.
and gentlemen, welcome to this episode where we are talking about the life of Chuck. It is a tale that celebrates the life of Charles Chuck Krantz as he experiences the wonder of love, the heartbreak of loss, and the multitudes contained in all of us. That's a pretty weak explanation. So let's go ahead and dig in here.
First of all, 1 to 10, what would you give the movie?
I liked it. 8?
Yeah, I'm like a 9.9. Like easily one of the top 5 movies we've seen since A-List, and I say that thinking it's still actually probably top 3. I wouldn't put it above Barbie.
I was gonna say you love your Barbie.
I do love Barbie, and it still holds up. And there probably was something else in there that I really liked. But I
really enjoyed
loved this movie.
Yeah.
It was just freaking beautiful, and it was like the right amount of complex, though I do want to see it again. 100% want to see it again.
We should have seen it again right after.
Well, I wasn't going to go to 2 right in a row. But yeah, because of the way they do it, I want to see.
The film starts off backwards, basically. So we have basically part 3, part 2, part 1. So we keep jumping back in time.
Yeah.
So this film is based on a Stephen King short story, and it follows Chuck Krantz, but it starts off at the end, so we're kind of confused because there's these billboards around and these ads around, and it says Chuck Krantz.
Thanks for 39 great years.
Yeah.
Yeah. With no.
It says 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah.
And so you're like, it sounds like a retirement of someone who's been in an industry who's retiring after 29 years or 39 years, but he doesn't look old enough to have been doing insurance or car sales or whatever for 39 years. And these are cropping up all over the place in a world that is basically on the brink of annihilation, with California falling into the ocean and wildflowers taking over. Would be nice. Yeah, wildfires in the middle of the United States, and the internet has been disrupted and doesn't exist anymore. And
they
life
lost
as we know
they
it.
lost power, they lost everything.
Yeah. And in the midst of it all, okay, so this is the one thing I didn't understand before we dig into some what would you do's, is all of the Chuck Krantz things. We see television ads, we see bus benches, we see billboards. I didn't understand that when the power went out, how every home's window turned into a glowing Chuck Krantz ad. I didn't get that.
Do you still not get it?
Well, he was a dream.
Yeah, well,
I mean, because there was
yes,
people in it from his his past, which you don't realize until you keep going back and back.
You have to go to Act 1. I contain multitudes, anyone that you've seen, everything becomes a part of your existence.
Story. Yeah.
So, and when you go back, there was something I noticed in Act 3 that I thought was very interesting, and it makes more sense once you get through Act 2 and Act 1, and that is when the ex-husband, ex-wife are talking on the phone.
Right.
And he has his cell phone that he's talking to her on.
Right.
She is talking on like an old, like 90s with the wire pulled up, like handset that, like, I haven't used one of those in forever. I mean, even cell phones aside, I haven't had one with the wire pull up in a really, really, really long time. So,
what do you mean the wire pull up?
like,
do you mean the extension
like the
cord?
really fat wireless phone, not cellular, but wireless, like corded versus wireless, and then they had the antenna, like on an old school car that you pull it up.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've never seen those used in houses.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen them used, but it's been a really long time. And it became clear to me that these were two people from different eras in some way, shape, or form. Like, why would that cell phone be talking to... Yeah, it was clear they were different eras, which makes sense in the end. Though the one thing that does kind of get me is that they were both from his early era.
Yeah, so the entire first act, which is actually Act 3, which is the end, is focusing around this school teacher and him navigating the destruction of the world and, power outages and internet stoppages. And it turns out by the time we get to Act 1, which is the third part of the film, he was a teacher in Chuck's school.
Yeah.
So he had interacted with Chuck, and Chuck had him in his memory. And
I contain multitudes.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the film and you're listening to this episode, none of what we're talking about is going to make sense.
None of it will make sense.
So it's definitely a really good film worth seeing if you haven't seen it yet. But what we're going to do next is dig into some what would you do's, which apply whether you've not seen a film or not.
Yeah, that's the beautiful of the what would you do's. What would you do if California fell into the ocean?
I'd be unhappy considering I live in California.
Yeah, and Florida's flooded, and there's wildfires and volcanoes going off in Germany, and just I mean, seriously, like you're at the point where it's like it's end of freaking times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the what would you do's, and this was such a delightful sequence in Act 2, which was the middle of the film, forward or backward. And Chuck is walking down the street. He's visiting somewhere for some sort of accounting conference. And there is a young adult woman playing the drums at a kind of outdoor mall. And she's playing the drums, and she sees him approaching, and she kind of changes her music to accommodate him kind of walking, making an entrance. And out of the blue, he starts dancing to the music, and he looks straight-laced, kind of boring, conservative. He's going to a banking conference or accounting conference, and he dances like Fred Astaire as he starts swinging and jiving and twirling to this gal's drums, and then winds up putting out his hand to a woman who had just been broken up with, unbeknownst to him, and they cut a rug, so to speak, in the middle of this outdoor mall with everyone around just digging what he's doing. And it was a wonderful scene, but then when you go to Act 1, which is the third part of the film, and you realize why he can dance like that. So and supposedly he doesn't know what possessed him to stop to listen to the music and break out, but it's very obvious is his grandma taught him to dance like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Though I will say this, I still, thinking about it, and again want to rewatch it, am not convinced whether Act 2 goes with Act 3 or Act 2 goes with Act 1, because I would think it would go with Act 1. Like, it's basically
that it's real.
Yeah, it's like
yes, I think
it's the last part of his essentially his last part of his real existence before his brain
his diagnosis
deteriorates.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because they say that, and then they basically say it's 9 months later that his life turns upside down.
But they also had the thing where, like, the drummer, Like if you're a drummer, you're not generally going to focus on one person who's walking up, unless that one person happened to be the center of the entire existence. That the rest of them would know it.
I think it was real.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was real.
It was interesting. It was fantastic. I actually found myself like uncontrollably moving in a good way.
Yeah, it was almost La La Land-esque.
Yes.
Just breaking out in music and dance, and it was just freaking delightful.
And it was just drums. Like all the music was drums.
Yeah.
But you could tell, like I could tell, like when there were swing beats and various types of beats just from the drums. Don't even need the other instruments. It was freaking fantastic.
So even though the third act, which we saw first, wasn't really real, what would you do if you were in any of those circumstances where the world was ending, or you didn't have internet, or you didn't have cell phones, or I don't know, stars in the sky were basically bursting out of existence, and the world as you know it is ending?
Yeah. That's a real interesting one. Make sure my loved ones know I love them, and find.
How are you going to do that though? You don't have internet.
Okay. Hopefully they already know.
I was going to say, because otherwise you have to get out and like walk to someone and tell them that.
I mean, basically just find you and make sure that that's how I go out is with you.
Aw, thanks, baby.
Because talk about in the moment when you truly realize what is most important. Like when you realize like you're still fine, but you realize everything's crumbling around you. I mean, imagine if like you saw like a nuclear missile flying in, that you'd be the same way. You're just like, I just like none of the other stuff, none of the games I play, none of the business stuff, none of the anything is worth anything at that point. It's.
I can see you trying to make a stock trade on some sort of company that would ward off the impending doom, and trying to make a last minute good stock call.
You know what? For one, I'm pretty sure based on the hours that the stock market was closed, especially when these stars are disappearing from the sky.
Yeah, when you talk about this, it reminds me of how at the beginning of this year we had a fire scare where we live, and when it came to taking whatever it was we wanted to take, thinking we were going to have to evacuate, there was not a lot of things that really, really mattered.
Stuff didn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, make sure we got the people, we got the pets.
Yeah, like, like I have a keepsakes box.
Yeah.
And these are the things that are, for the most part, not worth it. There's only one thing that's in there that I can think of that actually has some true real worth. Outside of that, everything else worth to me, and that's it. But basically the common connection with everything there is that they are 100% irreplaceable.
Yeah. So given the fact that some of this movie supposedly was a real story, and some of this movie was what was happening in the mind of a man whose brain was deteriorating. But
it's also interesting too, because you again, we've maybe talked about the simulation theory on the show. Maybe we haven't. I don't know.
No, we definitely have. Do you want to fill folks in on your simulation theory?
Yeah, we're in a simulation. I mean, a lot of people, I think, believe that at this point.
I mean, Scott thinks that nothing that is happening is of our own accord.
No. Everything that's happening is of our own accord. That's the entire point of it, is that we have all the control, but we're ones and zeros on someone else's computer. Now, we have no idea.
Okay, so for people who don't get that reference,
we're fake. But it's real to us. And that's the thing, is that it is completely, for me, like, this is my existence. If I die, I die.
So what I hear you saying is we are that Black Mirror episode of the little creatures that are on the guy's screen that he has to keep alive.
The Thronglings?
Yeah, the Thronglings.
Yeah.
Is that what we
You
are?
didn't like it when I played that game on the iPad.
No, that freaked me out. Yeah, if you haven't seen that episode of Black Mirror, definitely check that out with the Thronglings.
If you haven't seen all the episodes of Black Mirror, check them out.
Yeah.
Except for the very first one, actually. You can skip the first one. There's too much pig fucking.
Yeah, no, definitely not a fan of the first one. So when we see the origin of Chuck and how he was, I think it was 7 or 5 years old when when his mom and dad died in a car accident, and the mom was pregnant with his sister at the time, and he wasn't in the car. They were going to a party, and he was being babysat by his grandparents, and they died, and he lived with his grandparents, and they were quiet and sad and depressed for many, many years because their son had died in that accident. And Chuck grew up in a home that was sad and quiet and depressed. And finally, after many, many, many years had passed, they started to act somewhat normal again. And his grandma taught him how to dance, and that's why he was such a magnificent dancer in that scene in the middle. And then she died, and then the grandpa died. So Chuck is a man that had a lot of death and turbulence with his family in childhood, and yet still seemed very well adjusted and like a really good kid and a good man.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Though let me give you a what would you do from the very end of the movie.
Okay. The end of the movie, which was the beginning of the story.
Ish at that point. You have this room that you haven't been able to go into, and
because there's ghosts.
When your grandpa was drunk, he told you there was ghosts.
Yeah.
And you could see things, and you walk in and you see a man in a hospital bed that you look at and you're like, boy, I think this is me.
Yeah. And you realize that you are not an old man, that you are a middle-aged man, and you're in that bed.
Yeah, like you're waiting, but in a way, like,
yeah,
I mean,
you only have so many years ahead until you end up in that bed, because the thing with the room is his dad, or his grandfather rather, saw the grandmother's end in that room, seeing it dictated. He saw a neighbor's death in that room, so the ghosts in that room basically are premonitions of someone's death.
Saw his own death.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
So
it could be if you were Chuck or the grandpa. What would you do if you saw your own?
I mean, yeah, you don't know exactly how old you are, but you can probably get some form of a guesstimate.
Yeah.
And you're like,
if your
okay,
hair's not gray.
Here's what I've got left. And
what a freaking gift.
It would be.
I know people have very strong feelings on both sides of this about, like, I wouldn't want to know, or I'd want to know. I would want to know. Like, if I knew, like, it's so tragic that we have to have some sort of either near-death experience ourselves, or someone in our life has to die for us to realize, hey, this isn't an endless ride here. We have a limited amount of time in this body.
So here's a question for you.
Okay.
You're given a decision. I will show you basically how you're going to die and approximately when you're going to die. Like, you'll have to probably discern a few things, but you'll pretty much have an idea. But if I do that, it's going to take 15 years off of how much you would live otherwise.
No.
See, no. I think I do.
15 years. What if you died in 15 years and then poof, you're dead?
Well, I mean, the theory is that.
Or what if you're, I don't know, 40 or something, and then you realize, like, okay, you're gonna die in 55 or 60. And I don't know. 15,
that's
15
the thing.
years is a lot.
If I'm 40 and I know I'm going to die at 55 or 60, I can just live life. And I think that's a lot of what contributed to what to Act 2. The whole, like, fuck it. Nothing means anything anymore. I basically know that something's coming and I'm near my end. If there's ever a time to just be free, it's right now, because if you don't have now, like, you literally don't know which tomorrow is going to be your last, but
That's
you
a
know
good
it.
point.
But you know it's close.
Yeah, yeah. If you are middle age and someone is playing some music, and not only are you a great dancer and you love dancing, it's a beautiful memory and tribute to your grandma who taught you how to dance, and brings up a lot of good memories that you have of a kid learning how to dance, and you know you're kicking it somewhere in midlife, and you're in midlife. Frickin' stop and dance your frickin' heart out. But you know what? Why do you have to know you're gonna die to do that? Like, and that's the tragic part of all of us. Frickin' stop and dance to the person playing music in the street. And we live in a society, if someone does that, oh, they're weird.
Well,
they're weird. Be weird. Embrace your weird and frickin' have fun in this life.
The problem is with that is that you can't do that all the time, or else you just wouldn't live a life. You'd just be.
Oh, you mean you can't just have fun all the time?
Yeah, you can't have yes.
But you could have fun doing what you're doing.
Yes, I mean, I do agree. It's more about experiencing life, but
like you still can work and pay the bills, but you can.
You know what's coming left. If you're like, oh yeah, I probably got about a year left. You know what?
Oh yeah, at that point, quit the job.
My priorities are so freaking different at that point.
Yeah,
it is not even funny. Though I do find one thing funny. You know how you've said like whenever you learn a new term or word, that you then immediately start seeing it like everywhere.
Reticular activating system. Yes.
Yes. Busking.
Oh, did you hear that prior to?
Yes, like just like 1 or 2 days ago, I heard the term buskers. I think it was a video that I was watching on YouTube about.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. What does that mean? Because there was in Act 2.
Buskers are street performers.
Oh, okay.
Like anything that falls into the category of street performance.
So Chuck dancing and the gal he asked to dance with him and the drummer, when she said buskers forever, that was street performers.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, obviously she was the actual busker. They were just spontaneously, but yeah, like
she gave him a cut. At that point, you take money, you're a busker.
It was a YouTube video I saw talking about ways to make money, and they used the term busking. I'm like, what the hell is that term?
How funny.
And yeah, so I can't say enough good things about this movie. I really, really want to watch it again.
Well, and I know you, and I know there's a part of you that's going to wait till this comes out on streaming, and you're going to watch it backwards so you can watch it in order. Am I fairly accurate on that?
No, you are not.
I'm not accurate?
No, you're
really?
Not.
I know you've mentioned that was something else that you wanted to look at something in order.
Yeah, but
you don't want to mess with it.
This movie was pretty perfect the way it was. It really was. It just, I feel like as much as I appreciate it right now, I will appreciate it even more once I've seen it again, and once I actually have an idea of like what's going on, and I can see the things.
Yeah.
And
and hopefully, if you haven't seen it, you heard our warning about spoilers, because I would hate for you to go in knowing what you were saying.
Yeah, I actually feel like, in a way, that your experience watching this movie a second time is actually probably vastly different than your experience watching it the first time.
Yeah, because you see all these.
Yeah, once you have that, it's kind of like The Sixth Sense. You rewatch The Sixth Sense, you're like, oh, or Fight Club, like, oh, these things all make sense now.
That always makes me sad that you can't see something again for the first time, because there's so many films that it's like, wow, that was absolutely magical, and I'm not ever going to be able to either laugh as hard or be as moved or whatever as you were the first time. I'm so jealous of when people get to do something I really enjoyed for the first time, and I'm not ever going to be able to have that experience again. But yeah, this was a wonderful film, and
I feel like we didn't do as many "What Would You Do's" as we normally do because we've just been glowing about the movie. But I mean, yeah, Apocalypse, love the people.
I mean, what would you do if? Oh, yeah. I mean,
you lost your parents and unborn sister in an accident, and then had to live with your grandparents out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's.
I don't know. Just I think the overarching theme here really was what would you do if you knew you only made it to middle age, and you're a 17-year-old when you find that out. So that's not that far into the future.
Live my freaking life.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, Please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.